Firefighters weren't expecting to find bodies. They were responding to smoke complaints in an affluent Paris neighborhood. Instead, they opened a basement furnace and found human remains burning inside. The homeowner was a respected doctor. During the Nazi occupation, he claimed to be saving people. He told desperate families he could smuggle them out of France. They brought their valuables, they brought their children. And then they disappeared. For nearly 2 years, no one suspected him, until the smoke gave him away. This is the true story of Marcel Petiot, the man who turned fear into opportunity and trust into death. When victims arrived at his townhouse, they were welcomed politely. He spoke calmly, confidently, like a professional. Most of his patients believed they were being smuggled. For them, he insisted on one precaution: a vaccination. For others, he offered pain relief or medication. But all patients received an injection. They entered his consultation room. The needle pierced their skin. Then, rapid collapse and death within minutes. He stripped the bodies, collected valuables, destroyed the remains in his basement. Authorities would later believe he killed far more than the 26 victims proven at trial. But at the time, no one questioned the disappearances. Because in occupied Paris, disappearing usually didn't mean death. It meant escape. Marcel claimed connections to the French resistance. He used aliases, presented himself as a war veteran, a former mayor, a trusted physician. He promised safe passage through Spain or Portugal to South America. The price was everything that people owned, paid in advance. And perversely, the lack of survivors built his credibility. If no one returned, the operation must be working. That assumption protected him. And for a long time, that was enough. No witnesses, no bodies, no reason to investigate. But that wasn't the truth, because behind the walls of that townhouse, people weren't escaping, they were being killed. And what makes this case even more disturbing is that the warning signs were already there. This wasn't a transformation caused by war. Marcel had always lived on the edge of legitimacy. As a child, he was intelligent and disruptive. As a young man, he was wounded in World War I and discharged with a pension. As a doctor, he was known for illegal abortions, narcotics prescriptions, and fraud. He briefly reinvented himself as a small-town mayor, then embezzled funds and fled prosecution. By the time Paris fell under Nazi occupation, Marcel already understood two things: how authority disarms suspicion, and how chaos creates opportunity. The war didn't change him. It gave him scale. The Neller family was Jewish. They were desperate. Through whispered contacts and intermediaries, they heard about a doctor who could help, a man connected to the resistance, a man who moved families quietly out of France. They met him in his sitting room. He spoke confidently about routes and contacts. He insisted families must travel together. "Separation is suspicious," he said. They were told to bring him all their valuables, as they couldn't take them on the smuggling route. Days later, they returned, suitcases packed. Again, they were seated in the sitting room. Then, one by one, they entered the consultation room. The father first, then the mother, then the child. Each received an injection. Each collapsed. Marcel watched them die. Not all his victims were refugees. Jean-Marc Van Bever was a drug addict. Marcel supplied illegal prescriptions. When police began cracking down on narcotics, Jean-Marc was arrested. Under questioning, he named Marcel. That made him dangerous. Soon after, Jean-Marc was contacted. He was told help was available. He went to Marcel's townhouse. Marcel graciously offered him a free dose of morphine to calm his nerves. Jean-Marc never left. By now, Marcel believed he was untouchable. Nellie Denise Hautain was newly married, pregnant. Abortion was illegal, but Marcel had done it before. She arrived alone for a consultation. He agreed to perform the procedure immediately. He explained the process, asked her to lie down, gave an injection to numb the pain. She was never seen again. Different victims, different circumstances, same ending, an injection. For nearly 2 years, Marcel controlled everything. Who entered the house? Who left? What was burned? What was buried? Then he made a mistake. There were too many bodies. The furnace couldn't keep up. The quicklime pit was filled beyond capacity. The smell began to travel beyond the walls. The smell of death, of decomposition, unmistakable. Neighbours began to complain. One night in March 1944, Marcel overloaded the furnace with body parts and coal. Smoke poured from the building. The fire brigade was called. Marcel didn't resist entry. Firefighters followed the smoke to the basement. They found charred human remains inside the furnace, limbs nearby, a pit filled with decomposing bodies. Upstairs, they found suitcases, clothing that was not his, valuables carefully sorted. When questioned, Marcel didn't deny the bodies. He changed the story. He claimed he was working with the resistance, getting rid of Germans and collaborators. But the evidence contradicted him. Children's clothing, jewellery, civilian belongings. When police began pressing, Marcel fled. For months, he lived under aliases, in the same city where he murdered. After the liberation of Paris, the search intensified. He was captured in October 1944. In March 1946, Marcel stood trial for 27 murders. He treated the courtroom like a stage, interrupting witnesses, correcting prosecutors, arguing constantly. He still claimed patriotism. The jury didn't believe him. He was convicted of 26 murders, sentenced to death. May 25th, 1946. Dawn at La Santé prison. Marcel accepted a visit from a priest. He did not confess. His hands were bound, his jacket removed, his collar cut to expose his neck. Witnesses said he was calm, detached. As he stepped toward the guillotine, he turned and said, "Do not look, gentlemen. This won't be pretty." The blade fell. The court proved 26 murders. Police believed the number was far higher. Some victims were never identified. Some families were never traced. In occupied Paris, vanishing meant survival. And for 2 years, that assumption protected him. Marcel Petiot didn't hide in darkness. He operated in plain sight. He exploited fear. He weaponized trust. And he discovered something unsettling. When people are desperate enough, they will walk willingly toward the person who promises safety, even if that person is leading them somewhere else. The verdict ended his life. It didn't end the questions. Because the most disturbing part of this case isn't how he killed. It's how easily he was believed. and how long it worked.